Welcome to Stache Sports Episode 11. Last night, the Pittsburgh Penguins finally snapped their 8-game losing streak. But that is not the most important part of the game. Even though it went overtime, the Penguins still won, which the Penguins' last couple overtime games have not been good. They've been losing in the last overtime game, so they turned that around too. But the most important thing was the greatest Penguin player in my lifetime, Sidney Crosby, surpassed Mario Lemieux, who could have been the greatest player in my dad's lifetime, in most points, and the most points for the franchise. So now Sidney Crosby has the most points for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and he's only going to get more as the time goes along. He might break more records and more NHL stuff, let's see. But Sidney Crosby has been one of the greatest Penguin players in my lifetime. I like all the Stanley Cups he's won so far. Let's hope he can win more Stanley Cups with his new ownership and that they can build around him and keep him happy in Pittsburgh and that he doesn't go play for somewhere else. Because Sidney Crosby is one of the greatest Penguin players to play. But let's hope that after doing this 8-game losing streak that the Penguins finally snap out of it, because they were looking pretty good at the beginning of the season, defying people's odds, because most people on his local media up here were wanting them to suck for Gavin McKinnon, I think, a player from Penn State hockey. When you have to go into the lottery draft, and you don't have a chance to get a number one pick because it's a pick of the draw. But anyway, let's hope the Penguins can get back to playing better and not losing so much and not blowing leads like they had in this last losing skid. But a win's a win, and they beat the Canadiens, so let's see what happens from here on. But congratulations again to Sidney Crosby on becoming the all-time leading scorer in Pittsburgh Penguins history. And those are some tough shoes to fill, because Mario Lemieux was one of the other great Penguin players and great hockey players to play. But Sidney Crosby is a great craft. That is as good as a craft, and is one of the best captains a hockey franchise or sports franchise can have. One of my favorite players, number 87, Sidney Crosby from Canada. Even though when Canada and the U.S. play in the Olympics, he always plays for Canada and sometimes beats us for the gold, I still love Sidney Crosby, and congratulations on becoming the all-time scoring leader in Penguins history. Yesterday, the football season is coming near an end to the playoffs time. The Steelers went off to Detroit to play the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions in Detroit. And Detroit was trying to fight for a playoff spot. The game started off kind of slow with the Steelers offensive line not looking so hot. But that was given because we lost Roger Jones a couple weeks ago to an injury. We lost his backup Pete to an injury. And we had Dylan Cook starting the game too. Also, we were losing Isaac. Also, we had Isaac Malu was out. And his guard, Anderson, did pretty good later on in the game. But later on in the game, the Steelers finally got it going. They got a field goal by Boswell, 59 yards indoors. That's great. A 59-yard field goal by Chris Boswell, one of the best kickers in the NFL. And sometimes I think kicking indoors might be a little easier than kicking outdoors, but I'm not a kicker because you don't have the wind when you're indoors. You just have the stadium air conditioning or whatever. But the Steelers kept it close the whole game. And we also did not have T.J. Watt or Nick Herbig on defense, which was a big blow because those are our two top edge rushers. So rookie Jack Sawyer from Ohio State, who won a national championship last year in college football, got his first NFL start against the Detroit Lions in Detroit. He looked pretty good. He had a couple good plays on defense and didn't look like he was lost out there. Before halftime, the Detroit Lions scored. It was 10-3 Detroit. Pittsburgh was driving down the field. Oh wow! What a great catch by Kenneth Gainwell. What a great catch by Kenneth Gainwell. He went on the ground. He caught it before it touched the ground. Didn't get touched. Got up and ran in for a touchdown. Touchdown Steelers before halftime, 10-10. One of the greatest catches that you'll see in football. maybe a top 10 play today on ESPN Sports Center. My dad also said that was a great catch, too. Let's see if it'll be on the Sports Center's top 10 today. But 10-10 going to halftime, and the Steelers receive the second half kickoff. Let's hope they can have great second half adjustments. The Steelers started off strong in the second quarter and got a safety. And then they got a field goal again after the safety, making it 15-10. And then after that, Jaylen Warren had one touchdown past 50 yards, and barely anyone touched him, making it 22-10. And then he had another touchdown, back-to-back touchdowns past 50 yards. This is the first time that the Steelers had a running back have a touchdown past 50 yards since 1970. Wow, that's a great accomplishment. Let's hope that it can continue when the Steelers keep playing on next week and week's future, and maybe even into the playoffs. But we're not in the playoffs yet, so we don't have that to focus on yet. But anyway, Jalen making it 29. But the fourth quarter was not for the faint of heart. Detroit came back, made it really close, 24-29. The Steelers were driving down the field. A 35-yarder shorter field goal. Chris Boswell's mostly automatic. Oh no! Chris Boswell missed. Hit off the upright. Man, my blood pressure started rising then. And I got nervous because I thought Detroit was going to come back and win. Detroit ran down the field and scored a touchdown. Scored a couple of touchdowns, but one got called back for a pick. And the other one got called back because Amon-Ra St. Brown had pass interference. Offensive pass interference. The play took a long time for the refs to decide what the call was. They were standing there for quite a while, making us sweat out the last couple of seconds as Steelers fans to see if we would have won that game or lost that game. But since it was an offensive pass interference, since it's an offensive pass interference, the Steelers ended up winning the game and holding off the Detroit Lions and winning 29-24. Yes, you might say that the refs helped us, but who cares? A win is a win in my book. And this late in the season, you need the wins no matter how you get them. Good game from Detroit, but let's go Steelers. Kenneth Gainwell has been quite the surprise this year in my books. Maybe even team MVP. He signed a prove-it deal this year, basically a rookie deal, or a prove-it deal, a vet minimum. That's what it is, a vet minimum deal to prove it that he can be a Steeler player. They did not expect him to be all that good, I don't think, because they even drafted a running back in the third round of Caleb Johnson, who hadn't really seen the field besides his fumble that one time a couple weeks ago, and he's been here and there on a couple games, on a couple drives, but not that much, because Kenneth Gainwell has divine Oz and done a lot better than other people have expected him to do. I hope they re-sign Kenneth Gainwell at the end of the season, because he has definitely shown he needs more money, because he has been one of our most valuable players on offense. I still believe that he's number 2 in the division. Number 2 receiver right now in the Steelers organization this year. But anyway, we might definitely need him next week because earlier on in the game, for some reason, DK Metcalf had an interaction with a fan and ended up hitting the fan a little bit. So the NFL might suspend him because he can get suspended for anything. But we will see. They might suspend him for fine, but that's for a later video on a later day because I don't know anything on that yet. But anyway, talking about that, DK Metcalf needs to show up better when he's a Steeler player and not needs to start fighting with fans or other teams. He needs to act better and act like a grown-up and not act like a child all the time. And even if the fan deserved it, he should have walked away and not hit them. But, oh well, he did it anyway, so we'll see what happens and what the consequences are of his actions. Jack Sawyer, the rookie from Ohio State, looks really good in the absence of T.J. Watt and Nate Herbig from Wisconsin. And the other defense looked pretty good. Cam Hayward looked good, and our other defensive players looked good last night. Chuck Clark had a couple good pass breakups, and he was a sign-on during the part. He was added earlier on in the season and not in the off season. So that's good for the Steelers because of injuries. He was added, and he's making impact plays and impact deflections. But the Steelers won 29-24. Good game. Great game. And now, with the Patriots winning last night against the Baltimore Ravens, the Pittsburgh Steelers need to beat the Browns next week or have the Ravens lose to the Packers to make the division. If they beat the Browns next week, then they definitely are division champs, I believe. And we'll be in the AFC playoffs. But right now, we got to focus on the Browns. And for my Jaguar fans, yesterday the Jaguars showed up quite well for them, beating the Broncos, the number 1 seed in the AFC. Trevor Lawrence is looking pretty good, and it's ought to help me get to a championship game in my money league. Thank you, Trevor Lawrence, for that. But Trevor Lawrence looked really good yesterday, and the Jaguars are looking really good. Cohen, the new Jaguars coach, is looking really good with the Jaguars, and maybe he turned them around and made the Jaguars good again. But we'll see. The Jaguars don't need to worry about the Texans and Colts, but they need to win out still too for them to make the playoffs. The Buccaneers lost yesterday to the Panthers because Baker Mayfield threw an interception, but they still have a chance to beat the playoffs. Somehow Carolina can lose for the AFC. And then for the other Florida team, the Miami Dolphins, they have been kicked out of the playoffs and will be in the playoffs this year. But the Jaguars looking like a team that could be a team to beat right now. Or Buffalo, because I don't know which teams in the AFC right now are going to be the team to beat. Because since the Chiefs are out, it's going to be a lot harder, but we will see. Thank you for watching Stache Sports.